Forget New Year, New You. This season is about slowing down, locking the doors, and cozying up at home with the one you really want to do nothing with. Your dog. After the holiday chaos, those quiet nights with a blanket, a podcast, and your pup feel like the reset you actually need. Ollie helps make those moments easier with fresh protein-packed meals made from real human-grade ingredients, so your dog can enjoy some quality comfort food too. Choose from 5 recipes and get a personalized plan for your dog's needs. Meals arrive perfectly proportioned with a scoop and storage container, so serving is fast and mess-free. And with Ollie's in-app on-demand health screenings, supporting your dog is easy, ensuring more cuddles for many years to come. Visit ollie.com/truecrime and use code TRUECRIME for 60% off your first box.
One autumn night in 2017, a 911 operator got a call from someone who had walked outside to see a man lying on his back next to a disabled car. The caller later told deputies that he called out to the man in the ditch to see whether he needed help. He got no answer. The victim suffered multiple bullet wounds, mostly to the head and shoulders. The car's front tires were stuck in the same ditch, just a few feet away. It appeared that the victim, Carlos Cruz-Echevarria, had heard or witnessed a crash and went to the scene to offer aid. Carlos lived around the corner and drove to the scene. That's what detectives concluded early on in the investigation. Deputies said that while he was helping the motorist with his stuck vehicle, Carlos, who was 60 years old, was gunned down. His truck was then stolen, presumably by the same person who had shot him. It was shortly before 8 p.m. on November 11, 2017, when Volusia County Sheriff's deputies responded to Malaga Avenue, near the corner of Puritan Street in Deltona, Florida, about 30 miles northeast of Orlando. They pulled up and found Carlos sprawled on the ground and bleeding from his gunshot wounds. Paramedics could not revive him, and he was pronounced dead a few minutes later. There was no gun, nor anybody else, found at the scene. The car stuck in the ditch was a silver 2015 Chrysler. The driver's side door and trunk were open. The front seat was covered with a sheet of thin plastic, and a gasoline odor was emanating from the back seat. That's where deputies discovered an open gas can. Much of the gas had been spilled throughout the inside of the car. Several items had been shoved underneath the left front wheel of the vehicle in an obvious attempt to get it unstuck. Deputies ran a license tag check on the Chrysler. The tag was expired and wasn't assigned to any vehicle. They tried the vehicle identification number in an attempt to trace it to an owner, but they learned that the car had been stolen 5 weeks earlier in Orlando. There would be many more twists and turns during the investigation. The case was far more complicated than anything investigators could have anticipated. Their initial theory, that Carlos had just happened upon a vehicle in need and was then shot to death for his truck, may not be that simple. In fact, they would eventually learn that there had been a chain of events that had led to Carlos's death, and that it all started about 6 months earlier, following another incident on a Deltona street. It was also later discovered that a dangerous person was in Carlos's neighborhood that night, for a very specific reason. He was there to do a job. Twists and turns, indeed. This is Jillian, and in partnership with Law and Crime, you are listening to Court Junkie, episode 189. November 11th was supposed to have been a celebratory day for Carlos Cruz-Echevarria. There was a good chance he got a few thank yous that day. It was Veterans Day, and Carlos was a decorated U.S. Army veteran. The 60-year-old, who attended both airborne and ranger schools during his years of service in the 1970s, was a married man with a loving family. A neighbor spoke with Channel 6 News.
That man did not, deserve to lose his life like that, especially if he was trying to help someone.
The local media pounced on the story about the Good Samaritan and Army veteran who was killed on Veterans Day. The breaking story of Carlos's death was jarring to those who reported on it, as well as those who were hearing or reading about it. Carlos's family was devastated. His niece told the local media that Carlos was a rich and beautiful man. One of his favorite hobbies was raising exotic birds. Edgar Burgos, Carlos's brother-in-law who worked for the Volusia County Sheriff's Office, said it was incredibly tragic that Carlos was killed on Veterans Day, helping a stranded motorist. If you needed something and he had it, he would give it to you, he said. On a funeral home message board, someone using the name Bulldog posted a few paragraphs about Carlos. Bulldog said he had served in the Army with Carlos during the mid-1970s. They were on a recon training mission together. He was astonished at the level of physical training Carlos could endure. He wrote that he never saw his fellow soldier drink alcohol or smoke. He described Carlos as someone you could easily depend on during combat training. Bulldog wrote that there's a special place in hell for people who take the lives of men like Carlos, someone willing to sacrifice everything for the greater good. He ended his message stating, "God bless Carlos in his afterlife and be with him forever." Detectives had their hands full just taking into account everything that had happened the night of the shooting. They didn't have just one crime scene to investigate. They had 3. Shortly before the 911 call about the shooting on Malaga Avenue, the sheriff's office received a call about a hit-and-run crash at the corner of East Normandy Boulevard and Providence Boulevard, located about 3/4 of a mile west from where Carlos had been shot. In spite of the order of the 911 calls, it was learned that the crash happened minutes after the shooting. Following the crash, a witness caught the tag number of the vehicle that fled the scene. It was a blue Ford F-250 pickup. The driver of the truck was wearing a black jacket and a hood over his head, and it appeared as though he was trying to conceal his identity. The truck was registered to Carlos Cruz-Echevarria. Later that night, authorities realized the connection between the shooting and the hit-and-run crash and entered Carlos's truck into a stolen vehicle database. They also issued a Be on the Lookout bulletin, or BOLO, advising local law enforcement that the stolen truck may have been involved in a homicide. Several hours later, the Orange County Sheriff's Office notified Volusia deputies that they discovered Carlos's truck. It had been abandoned and burned at a neighborhood intersection in Apopka, another Orlando suburb, located about 30 miles from Deltona. More puzzle pieces fell into place after a search warrant was obtained for that abandoned Chrysler that was stuck in the ditch in Deltona. Several sets of fingerprints were found inside. At least one set of prints from inside the stolen car was linked to Benjamin Bascom, a 24-year-old ex-con from Apopka. But it was going to take more than fingerprints to crack the case. After all, the car had been reported stolen, and several people had been inside. Less than 4 weeks after the shooting, a Volusia County Sheriff's detective obtained a search warrant for cell tower data in the area of Malaga Drive, where Carlos was killed. Weeks after that, in January 2018, that same detective, Detective Andrew Calkins, obtained a search warrant for the cell tower data in Apopka, near the scene of the vehicle arson. During the course of the investigation, detectives learned that one particular cell phone number had been called at different times from a phone that had been pinging cell towers in proximity to the shooting in Deltona and the fire in Apopka. The number was assigned to a cell phone belonging to a woman by the name of Sabrina, an employee at an Orlando area elementary school. That intrigued investigators because Sabrina and Benjamin, the man whose fingerprints had been found in the stolen Chrysler, had history. They had been in a relationship and had a child together. In April 2018, Detective Calkins visited Sabrina at her school. She provided him with the phone number of her former boyfriend. It was a vital clue. Detective Calkins, who is recognized for his investigative work in this case and has since been promoted to sergeant, learned through cell tower data that a call from Benjamin's phone to Sabrina's phone was made at 6:31 p.m. Prosecutors said the shooting occurred around 7:30 p.m., and the hit-and-run crash occurred just 8 minutes later. Benjamin's phone also pinged the Apopka Tower in proximity to the vehicle arson around 8:50 p.m. That cell tower data broke open the case. Based on that evidence, Benjamin appeared to have been in proximity of all 3 crime scenes that night: the shooting, the hit-and-run crash, and the arson. Detective Calkins obtained more records related to Benjamin's cell phone usage. Those records showed that Benjamin's cell phone had a lot of text communication with 2 other numbers that night, a number with the area code 386 out of Volusia County and one with the area code of 407 out of Orlando. In fact, all 3 had been texting each other through textnow.com. TextNow is a free texting and calling app in the same vein as WhatsApp or Signal. These types of apps tend to leave a smaller digital footprint compared to private messaging through social media apps like Facebook or Instagram. When Calkins discovered the owner of that 386 number, he seemed to have hit the jackpot. It belonged to Kelsey McFoley. He then discovered that Kelsey had been charged in a road rage crime 6 months earlier. The victim in that case? Carlos Cruz-Echevarria. The text message content uncovered by Detective Calkins was a treasure trove of evidence. The text disclosed a detailed plan to murder Carlos. Throughout their text correspondence, the 386 user, whom investigators learned was Kelsey McFoley, was frequently referred to as Life, spelled L-Y-F-E. Kelsey's Facebook username was Life Patterson. Detectives also learned that the person linked to the third number, the 407 number, was a woman by the name of Melissa Rios Roque, who happened to be Kelsey's girlfriend. Based on the evidence, investigators' new theory was that Kelsey had hired Benjamin to carry out the hit, while Melissa was tasked with picking up Benjamin and driving him away from the scene. The text messages revealed that Benjamin was to be paid $1,000 by Kelsey for carrying out the killing. Benjamin was told by Kelsey to obtain a vehicle and a gun and meet up with him before heading to Deltona to commit the murder. Benjamin arrived at the meeting point and Kelsey provided him with a description of Carlos's location and vehicle. According to the texts, Benjamin showed up near Carlos's house, but got his front tires stuck in a ditch. Court documents revealed the following. The same conversation showed that Kelsey instructed Benjamin to set the vehicle he stole on fire and to use his GPS to find the nearest park. He was told to stay there and wait for further instructions. Kelsey later changed the plan and instructed Benjamin to meet at a particular address in Deltona and to wait there so that he could then be picked up by Melissa. At some point, Ben confirms that he killed Carlos, and Kelsey told him to clean up and get rid of his phone. After all the evidence was collected, reviewed, and presented to the state attorney's office, a grand jury was impaneled. On September 5th, 2018, Kelsey McFoley, Benjamin Bascom, and Melissa Rios Roque were indicted by the grand jury on first-degree murder charges. They were arrested 10 months after the murder. The casualness of the text conversations between Kelsey and Benjamin astonished investigators. The head of the major case unit of the Volusia County Sheriff's Office, Brian Henderson, who at the time held the rank of captain, addressed that during a media conference following the indictments.
The conversation that occurred, clearly in our mind, this person was predisposed to this kind of activity. This was not a leading up conversation to talk this person into committing a murder. This was just as if you would call someone and ask them a question. The question just happened to be, will you go kill somebody? And that's exactly what happened.
In order to arrest all the suspects, authorities had to act fast, especially in the case of Kelsey McFoley.
Mr. Defendant McFoley, rather, we learned that he purchased a one-way ticket to Texas. We followed him to the Orlando International Airport, and with the assistance of the homicide prosecutor, Ryan Will, we were able to go ahead and secure an arrest warrant. Our fear was, in fact, that he was perhaps fleeing the country. We worked with the Orlando Police Department once we had the warrant in hand, and we were able to take him into custody in the TSA secure area. Mr. Bascom was tracked by the United States Marshal Service, which, as a side note, great, awesome agency that helps us in most of all of our violent crimes when people leave this county. They track them down for us and bring them to justice. They were able to track Mr. Bascom to a moving company over in Orlando, and as he pulled into the parking lot, the U.S. Marshals were able to take him into custody without incident.
The news conference was called by Volusia County Sheriff Mike Chitwood, who didn't mince words when he spoke to reporters.
Behind every life, there's a story. And unfortunately, Mr. Carlos Cruz-Echevarria's life ended when a bunch of animals, human garbage, whatever term you want to use, can be applied to these three individuals. I've been a cop for 32 years. This is one of the most heinous, despicable, cowardly acts that I've ever witnessed. And it's also probably one of the greatest pieces of police work that I've ever witnessed in my career that was done by these gentlemen standing behind me.
When the news broke about the indictments of the three suspects, Kelsey McFoley, Benjamin Bascom, and Melissa Roque, people finally learned about the motivation behind the murder of Carlos Cruz-Echevarria. It wasn't just a case of a Good Samaritan being gunned down so that his car could be stolen. One of the defendants wanted him dead. Carlos was the state's only witness in a case that could have landed Kelsey McFoley in jail for up to 15 years after the road rage incident. Kelsey's motive to kill him was explained to the jury at his trial 3 years ago. The trial was aired on Court TV. Here is lead prosecutor Ryan Will addressing the jury during his opening statement.
It's this prior crime and the potential punishment that gives rise to the murder in the first place. It's the reason for the killing and the best evidence of the defendant's intent. Kelsey McFoley had motive to want Carlos Cruz-Echevarria dead.
In the late afternoon of May 2nd, 2017, 6 months before Carlos was killed, Volusia County Sheriff's deputies were called to the scene of a road rage incident along East Normandy Boulevard. A deputy came upon Carlos Cruz-Echevarria, who told him that he had been stopped at a red light up the road at the corner of Deltona Boulevard. He had been in his vehicle behind a Toyota sedan, and the driver of the sedan was stopped at a red light. The light turned green, and the Toyota didn't move, so Carlos pressed his horn. Court documents disclosed the following. The man behind the wheel of the Toyota threw his hands in the air, but his vehicle didn't move. Carlos eventually passed the vehicle on the right and headed east. Carlos stopped at the red light at Providence Boulevard, and the driver of the Toyota pulled up next to him. The driver was Kelsey McFoley. Kelsey asked Carlos whether he had a problem. Carlos told him, "No, but maybe you do." Kelsey retorted, "Do you want to make it a problem?" Carlos replied, "It's up to you." That's when Kelsey reached towards the glove compartment of his Toyota, pulled out a handgun, and pointed it at Carlos. There were two females inside the Toyota with Kelsey, and they began screaming. At that moment, Carlos put his vehicle in reverse so he could see the tag number on the Toyota. That's when the Toyota pulled away, heading north on Providence. Carlos pulled into a parking lot in the vicinity and called 911. Carlos assured the deputy that he would be able to identify the driver of the Toyota if he saw him. He also said he fully intended to press charges if the suspect was identified and arrested. At first, it seemed the investigation into the incident had hit a dead end. The vehicle was registered to a female, and she told investigators that no one else was authorized to drive it. She consented to a search, and no firearm was found. Deputies checked to see whether there were any security cameras in the vicinity, but no luck. A deputy showed up at the car owner's home again, and she backed off her initial story. She said that a man had been driving her car on the day of the incident. She knew him as Magic, but didn't know him well. She kept giving evasive answers, and at one point said she had deleted his number from her phone. She changed her story again and provided deputies with the number. The phone number was assigned to a man who was not the driver of the Toyota. His photo was shown to Carlos, and he said he was sure that the man in the photo was not the man who had pulled a gun on him. The owner of the car refused further cooperation, so the detective assigned to the case called the number she had given him and spoke to a man who answered. The man told the detective he suspected who may have been driving the car that day. He said the man goes by the nickname Life and was known to have a bad reputation. The man on the phone told the detective that the owner of the car probably hadn't wanted to disclose that the gunman was Life because she, like everyone else, feared him. The man on the phone told the detective one last thing. He knew Life's last name. It was McFoley, and he lived near Orlando. The detective tracked down Kelsey McFoley. He found a photo of him and showed that photo to Carlos, who positively identified him as the man who pointed a gun at him. A criminal history check showed that Kelsey had 29 previous felony charges filed against him before that incident, but only one conviction. In December 2012, Kelsey had been convicted on charges of grand theft and trafficking stolen property. He served 2.5 years in prison and was released in June 2015. He had been a free man for less than 2 years before a warrant was issued for his arrest on June 1, 2017, for allegedly pulling a gun on Carlos. Kelsey was charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon and 2 other firearm-related counts. But Kelsey would have yet another felony charge slip through the cracks. After the victim of his aggravated assault case died violently and unexpectedly, his charge was dropped. But people started to get suspicious, eventually. Kelsey McFoley was the first of the 3 indicted defendants to be tried for the murder of Carlos Cruz-Echevarria. During his trial, prosecutors said Kelsey had been offered a plea deal in the aggravated assault case that would have sent him to prison for 3 years, a relatively lenient sentence, given his criminal record and the 15-year maximum he could have faced had he taken his case to a jury and lost. But it was clear that Kelsey had no desire to spend another day in prison. Here's another portion of Ryan Will's opening statement to the jury.
The defendant, Kelsey McFoley, had Carlos Cruz-Echevarria killed for the simple reason that he did not wish to face the consequences of his own actions. And today, it is my pleasure to present to you the case against Kelsey McFoley. Over the course of the next several days, you will have the evidence laid out before you piece by piece. You'll have the opportunity to weigh it, test it, to judge it against your own life experiences. And the further we develop the facts of our case, the more that you will realize that this crime was an execution, that this crime was a murder for hire, and that this crime was a witness elimination. The entire thing financed, planned, and directed by this defendant.
Carlos was killed weeks before a scheduled deposition. A key piece of evidence was discovered by the FBI. During Kelsey's trial, it was revealed that FBI agents were investigating Kelsey in an unrelated case when they discovered that his smartphone contained photos of Carlos, a sheriff's office report of the incident, and a witness list. His phone also contained Carlos's listed address.
For those of you unfamiliar with the workings of our criminal justice system, every defendant is provided with all of the evidence in the state's possession in every single criminal case. This process is known as discovery. You're going to hear about that throughout the course of the trial. Discovery is required in every criminal case, and the state, the prosecutor, must furnish to the defendant the basic allegations of the crime, police reports, property sheets, evidence lists, and the reports of any experts who are testifying on behalf of the state. Essentially, we must give to them all of the information that the government intends to use in order to prove his guilt. To ensure that a fair trial is conducted, the contact information of each witness has to be provided to the defendant. That may seem unorthodox, but it is the practice of the courts. The reason that the contact information is given is so that the defense attorney has the opportunity to examine the state's case and weigh it and test its strength. Now, most of the time, it's unknown whether or not the defendant ever learns or cares about the location of his witness. But this case is different. Kelsey McFoley was active in his own defense.
Now, Kelsey didn't voluntarily turn over his phone to the authorities for a search. He was taken into custody following a traffic stop in West Volusia County on October 10, 2017, about 1 month before Carlos's murder. He was taken into custody by the FBI, which had been investigating Kelsey. Details of the FBI investigation haven't been released, but Kelsey's murder trial revealed that the FBI searched the contents of Kelsey's phone during its investigation. That's when agents found court documents, including deposition notices, photo screenshots, and handwritten witness statements related to the aggravated assault case. Following Carlos's murder, however, those phone records took on a new significance. Investigators went to work to determine whether Carlos's murder was related to the aggravated assault case, one in which Carlos was the state's only witness.
The photos of these crucial documents serve as proof that Kelsey McFoley knew Carlos Cruz-Echevarria was going to testify against him, and further provided the residential address of the state's only witness.
Prosecutor Will went on to tell the jury that Carlos's body was found a couple lots away from his home. He explained that at first, it seemed to be a case of a Good Samaritan being gunned down by the person he was helping. Then he mentioned the fingerprint on the gas can that belonged to Benjamin Bascom, that Carlos's truck was stolen, and that it was later involved in a hit-and-run crash down the road from the shooting, and then set on fire in a Popka. He also discussed the cell phone data that placed Benjamin at the scene of the shooting, the hit-and-run crash, and vehicle arson. Prosecutor Will concluded his opening statements by explaining that the case was simple, but with some complicated details, particularly when it came to cell phone records. He also said there was no mystery surrounding it. The motive was obvious, and those responsible had left a digital trail that led investigators directly to them.
You see, ladies and gentlemen, this is not a case of whodunit. This is a case of a very careful and meticulous investigation. An investigation that's revealed Benjamin Bascom shot and killed Carlos Cruz-Echevarria because he was hired to do so. According to the evidence, the person responsible for financing and directing this elaborate plan is the man before you today.
Among the state's witnesses was Jeannie Stratus, an assistant state attorney in the 7th Judicial Circuit. She handled felony cases out of West Volusia, and she was assigned the aggravated assault case against Kelsey, the one in which he allegedly pointed a gun at Carlos. Prosecutor Will asked her about the pertinent witnesses in the case.
Tell us, please, if you will, what other substantive witnesses there were in the state's case.
There weren't any. He was it.
He was the only witness for the state's case?
The only substantive witness. There were law enforcement officers, but they had not been present for the actual events, so they were just extra witnesses.
Okay, and their function then essentially was to write reports about what Mr. Carlos Cruz-Echevarria told them?
Yes.
And the entire case hung upon the word of this witness?
That's correct.
Stratis went on to say that the case would inevitably have collapsed without Carlos's testimony. She also said she and Kelsey's attorney agreed to a 3-year prison sentence in exchange for his guilty plea. But she added that Kelsey never seemed interested in any sort of plea bargain, in spite of his attorney's effort to secure one. Carlos was scheduled to take part in a deposition on December 7th, 26 days after his murder. After he was killed, Kelsey wasted no time in getting the case dismissed.
When the victim failed to appear on December 7th, did the defendant file essentially a motion to dismiss or push the case to trial on December 8th?
Yes, on December 8th, he filed something called a demand for speedy trial.
And what did that, in effect, cause you to do?
It pushes us to close the case out sooner, pretty quickly, actually.
It imposes a time deadline by which you must either bring this case to trial or dismiss it. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And in fact, because Carlos Cruz-Echevarria was no longer with us, what was your reaction?
I had to dismiss it.
Jurors also heard testimony from Todd Healy, a Deltona resident who heard the gunshots on the night of November 11th, 2017. Healy testified that he heard popping noises that night from inside his house. He thought they were fireworks because he never hears gunfire in his neighborhood. As he further thought about it, he wondered why he was hearing fireworks in November. He usually only hears them on July 4th or New Year's Eve. He also thought it was unusual that he only heard about 4 pops. Fireworks usually went off in greater numbers. He decided to investigate.
I got my dog and put her on her leash and walked outside.
Okay. And how long did you take a walk?
Just a few minutes because I saw a vehicle parked in the mud.
Okay. Describe that vehicle to us.
I think it was gray.
Okay. Passenger car or truck?
Passenger car.
Okay.
Vehicle was running.
Okay. How was it stuck in the mud? Where was it stuck?
It was up in the swale closer to the sidewalk than the road.
Okay. Is there a little ditch there?
Yes.
And was the ditch wet?
It's a wet area. It's grassy, but it's a wet area.
Okay. In addition to the vehicle, what other observations did you make of the vehicle?
I noticed a person lying behind the vehicle wearing like a safety yellow vest or a safety yellow shirt.
Okay. What did you do at that point?
I walked up towards the vehicle and the person.
And what observations did you make?
Person was not moving, so I yelled to him and said, "Are you okay? Do you need help?" And I got no response.
Okay. Did you make any other observations?
I smelled gas. It smelled like a gasoline smell.
Okay. Heavy smell of gas?
It was pretty, for me to notice it, I would say so.
Okay.
Because it was outside, it wasn't in an enclosed area.
What did you do after making these observations?
I went back inside and got a flashlight and got my cell phone and called 911.
The state called several more witnesses to the stand, including the witness who caught the tag number of the stolen vehicle that struck them in Deltona, driven by Benjamin Bascom, the crime scene investigator who oversaw the scene of the shooting, and the detectives who worked the shooting, the crash, and the arson. Detective Andrew Calkins also took the stand. He described how he obtained phone records through search warrants and subpoenas. He obtained reams of documents, which revealed the incriminating conversations among all 3 defendants. The digital trail to link Kelsey to the Text Now account consisted of a lot of detours. Detective Calkins obtained a phone number, a bank account, an email account, a Facebook account, and a dating app account, and had to link all of them to Kelsey.
When you looked at the content records of Facebook, what did you find as it relates to the account of Kelsey McFoley?
We found that his name associated with the account was Life Mandingo, and as his URL, and the name is Life Patterson on Facebook.
What's the difference between the two names?
One is the URL that's created when you open the account, and the other one is your vanity name that you give it.
So basically your username?
Yes, your username.
Okay. Mine would be Ryan Will, yours would be Andrew Calkins. His was Life Patterson.
Yes.
Okay. Did it contain his photograph in the profile?
Yes.
Did it contain numerous photographs of him in the profile?
Yes.
Did it contain messages, both sent and received, from the profile?
Yes.
And did those messages refer to him as Life, L-Y-F-E?
Yes, they did.
Prosecutor Will methodically went over additional pieces of evidence that linked Kelsey to his street name, Life. That included everything from text messages sent to him using that moniker to actual letters mailed to him with that name written on the envelope. Jurors also had copies of transcripts of the text message exchanges between Kelsey, Benjamin, and Melissa Rios-Roque. Prosecutor Will went over them line by line and had the witness and court officers read them aloud. At one point, Kelsey told Benjamin he had a job for him. They talked about obtaining a gun and a car. Benjamin asked about obtaining cash from Kelsey. The transcripts were read while Detective Calkins was on the stand. While jurors read along, Calkins read Kelsey's messages. A male court officer read Benjamin's messages, and a female court officer read Melissa's. You're about to hear a portion of that testimony. You'll hear Prosecutor Will call out the times and the name of the author of each individual message. He also asks Calkins to explain certain acronyms and slang terms. This is the part of the text conversation in which Benjamin tells Kelsey that the car he was driving got stuck.
543 Bascom to McFoley.
I was trying to park on the side of the road and this bit just dropped.
543 McFoley to Bascom.
All right, let me know once you're ready, bro.
544 Bascom to McFoley.
Okay.
544 Kelsey McFoley to Benjamin Bascom.
Make it happen and make a clean getaway. If car done, still set it on fire on your way out.
At this point in the conversation, Benjamin starts to wonder whether Carlos is even home. Thinking the entire plan has fallen apart, Kelsey tells him to walk to the nearest park. Then he gives him directions to walk to a particular house nearby so that his girlfriend, Melissa, could pick him up. Kelsey starts venting. He and Melissa start to get worried.
647 Roque to McFoley.
Make sure you don't come in here with clothes.
648 McFoley to Roque.
He fucked up. He didn't make it.
648 Roque to McFoley.
WTF, question mark?
Investigator WTF.
What the fuck?
649 Roque to McFoley.
WYMN.
Investigator, any idea what that is?
No.
649 Roque to McFoley.
What now?
649 McFoley to Roque.
IDFK.
Investigator, any idea what that is?
I don't fucking know.
649 McFoley to Roque.
I'm fucked.
Kelsey and Melissa keep exchanging messages. While there was phone silence on the part of Benjamin, Kelsey had Melissa drive from the designated pickup spot to Carlos's house. She texted Kelsey, letting him know that Carlos was in his driveway, working on one of his cars. There was still no sign of Benjamin anywhere in the vicinity. By then, Kelsey was angry.
739 McFoley to Bascom.
Bro, where are you at?
739 McFoley to Bascom.
She's been looking for you for the past hour.
740.
He's out fixing car right now.
After minutes of bickering between Kelsey and Melissa, Benjamin ends his silence and sends a message to Kelsey. He did what he was hired to do.
826 Bascom to McFoley.
Handled that.
827.
Where you at, bro? Did you do wrong person?
McFoley to Bascom. 827, Bascom to McFoley.
I'm home now. Come holla at me. No, just him.
827, McFoley to Bascom.
My girl's seen him on car, bro. Fixing on a car.
828, Bascom to McFoley.
I know. I walked back and did they trust me. I got proof. Come see me.
Benjamin had stolen Carlos's ID to prove to Kelsey that he had carried out the hit. Benjamin texted Kelsey some of the information from the ID, and Kelsey was convinced the job was done. Carlos was dead. After a few more witnesses were called, including the medical examiner who performed the autopsy, the evidence portion of the trial concluded. Kelsey did not testify. Kelsey's defense attorney, Kevin Prue, said during his closing arguments that he had defended many other murder cases, but none like this one.
It's natural that we want to assess blame, and we want to find out who did it. But Mr. Will was exactly correct. This is a very, very different kind of murder case. It's not my first, and it's not Mr. Will's first, but it's the first of this kind, of this nature, I should say. He's right. Most murder cases have eyewitnesses. A murder weapon, DNA, videos, some kind of direct evidence that points guilt at a defendant. This case is entirely made up of electronic devices. This case is all about cell phones, computers, emails, websites. It's what the state has. It's all that they have.
Prue said there was no reason for his client to pay someone to kill Carlos.
There's no true motive in this case. Nobody's going to offer $1,000 to pay somebody to kill somebody, especially when their own lawyers told them there's no need to do anything like that. We're going to win your case. So there's no reason to do that. Well, but that's the only link they have between Mr. Echevarria and anyone that they can pin this murder on.
The jury, comprised of 9 women and 3 men, disagreed and found Kelsey guilty of first-degree murder. Prosecutor Will asked Carlos's family whether they wanted to speak prior to the judge issuing the sentence. They chose not to give any witness impact statements. Kelsey McFoley was convicted and sentenced to life in prison in January 2019. Due to COVID-19, the next defendant in the case wouldn't go to trial until October 2021. Benjamin Bascom was tried on 1 count of first-degree murder and 2 counts of witness tampering. By the time Benjamin's case went to trial, prosecutor Ryan Will had left the state attorney's office for a job in private practice, so the case was handled by Joe Ladon and Andy Urbanik. Ladon gave the opening statements to the jury.
On November 11, 2017, the defendant, Benjamin Bascom, drove a vehicle from Apopka to Deltona, Florida, the 600 block of Malaga Avenue. He got his vehicle stuck in a ditch, and he waited for the victim in this case, Carlos Cruz-Echevarria, to drive by and offer his help. And when the defendant was ready, and when the victim was in the perfect position, the defendant shot the victim 4 times, execution style, and left him on the side of the road to die. After he shot him 4 times and left him to die, the defendant got in the victim's vehicle, his truck. He drove the truck back to Apopka. He took it to a wooded area. He set it on fire, and he went away into the night. That's what this case is about. This case is about how the defendant shot the victim, Carlos Cruz-Echevarria, 4 times.
The new prosecutors mostly followed the template set by Prosecutor Will. The same witnesses were called to testify. The description of how the crime was carried out was the same. The only major difference was the emphasis on Benjamin's tampering charges. The prosecution presented evidence that Benjamin had attempted to manipulate Sabrina, his former girlfriend, in a desperate attempt to avoid a life sentence. Sabrina was called to testify. Prosecutor Andy Urbanik asked her to read aloud some text messages that Benjamin had sent to her on November 14, 2017, 3 days after Carlos was killed.
What does it say?
I honestly am leaving the state, and I really need your help.
The same page is going to end at 162, ma'am.
Okay.
Is that one at 6:45:38 on the 14th?
Yes.
Is that again from Mr. Bascom?
Yes.
What does that mean?
I'm getting rid of this phone, too.
10 months later, Sabrina learned that Benjamin was charged in connection with Carlos's murder. The two communicated via email and phone while he was in jail awaiting trial. In the summer of 2020, Sabrina was trying to get her daughter's last name changed. At the time, the girl's last name was Bascom. She wanted her to have her name. Benjamin said he would sign the necessary paperwork to allow that to happen, on one condition. She would need to send a written request to the trial judge assigned to his case.
I wrote the email asking not to testify because Ben said if I didn't testify, he would sign the papers for my daughter's name change.
Benjamin's attempts to manipulate his ex-girlfriend into not testifying backfired. Sabrina was visited by an investigator from the state attorney's office. After that visit, it was clear that she was going to testify and disclose what her ex-boyfriend was trying to do. Benjamin was enraged and sent her a series of angry, profane messages. Those messages were read by Sabrina while on the stand. The jury deliberated for an hour before returning with a guilty verdict for Benjamin Bascom. By comparison, it had taken 2 hours for a jury to convict Kelsey. Kelsey McFoley is serving his life sentence at the Gulf Correctional Institute near Panama City Beach. Benjamin Bascom is serving his life sentence at Liberty Correctional Institution near Tallahassee. The third defendant in the case, Melissa Rios-Roque, who gave birth to a child fathered by Kelsey shortly after her arrest, is still in the Volusia County Jail, awaiting trial for her murder charge. No trial date has been set as of this recording. The strongest public comments about the case came from Volusia County Sheriff Mike Chitwood. When he announced the indictments in September 2018, he said that his detectives made the investigation into Carlos's murder a priority. He took aim one more time at those accused of killing him.
This case was so shocking to the conscience that we meet weekly and discuss every single homicide. But the fact that this was a man that was loved in his community, he was loved by his family members. He even has his brother-in-law is a member of VCSL. There was a little bit more to up our game on this. And due to their hard work and a little bit of a break here and there, they were able to solve this murder for hire case. Carlos did not deserve to die. You got a pack of animals who once again illustrate that human life is cheap on the street. A road rage incident where a man does what he's supposed to do, notify the police, cooperate with the system, and his thanks was to end up with multiple bullets in his head, just killed outside of his home.
And that's all for this episode. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this case. Let me know by joining the conversation on Instagram at Court Junkie, by tweeting me at CourtJunkiePod, or by emailing me at podcast@courtjunkie.com. This episode was researched and written by Tony Holt. To hear these episodes without the ads and to hear additional Court Junkie bonus episodes, check out my Patreon options at courtjunkie.com/support. Thanks again for listening. Until next time.